Hello everyone and welcome back to Seeker Plus. I'm your host Julian Huguet, and this week I'm talking about archaeology. If you missed the first episode, we got into how the field of archaeology is structured and how scientists figure out the ages of discoveries that they make using a technique made possible by the Manhattan Project of all things. It's fascinating, so definitely go check that out if you haven't already. But now, I want to get into what makes archaeology so sweet in the first place, and that's the discoveries. The shipwrecks, the mummies, unopened tombs, lost cities in the jungle, buried treasure. This also feels like a good time to talk about whether, in all of this, we should be digging up ancient people and the objects that once supported their livelihoods in the first place. I mean, archaeological digs haven't always gone down in the most ethical ways. That might be because archaeology really came into its own as an academic discipline in the 19th century, right around the same time that modern nation-states were emerging. Bound up in colonial ideologies from the beginning, the field was made up largely of European men who were fine with disrupting ancient sites, disregarding local customs, and basically just taking whatever they pleased. It's a great tragedy how so many incredible artifacts and remains have been stolen or mistreated or just plain lost all around the world. So I think we can all agree that this whole finders keepers approach to archaeology isn't the move. It's a bad look today. This has led to calls for many museums to return artifacts to the places and countries they were taken from. For example, in the late 19th century, invading British troops looted thousands of objects from the Benin Kingdom, now present-day Nigeria. Nigeria has been asking for the return since the country gained independence from the British in 1960, yet many museums have yet to fulfill their request. There's no denying it's a complicated and divided issue. There are people who think disturbing any human burial site is wrong, even if it's done respectfully for scientific reasons. Some think it depends on the beliefs of the cultures of the group in question, and there are groups actively working to approach archaeology from a decolonial lens, acknowledging how colonial domination was a huge piece of early archaeology. And at the same time, some believe that archaeology will teach modern humans lessons that could really help inform our decisions about the future. One example I found was a National Geographic article about archaeologists that study how diseases affected people in the past. Dr. Sharon DeWitt, a professor of the University of South Carolina, was looking into the Black Death, and through analysis of the teeth on skeletons, she was able to debunk the notion that the disease affected people indiscriminately. She found that it actually affected older people more than those who were younger. This is something that might help in future encounters with the plague, which, yes, is still around. Scary. DeWitt also said something about whether we should dig up historic humans that I found interesting. She said, and I quote, that written records are mostly biased towards wealthy individuals and men, especially if we're talking about the medieval period. If we want to know anything about the experience of women, children, or poor people, very often the only way we can get at this is by looking at skeletal data. So, in a way, studying these populations that were excluded from those historical texts can be a way to restore their stories to the present. Even stories from the very recent past that have been hidden. One notable example of this was the 2021 discovery of the remains of hundreds of Indigenous children in various residential school sites in Canada. I'm going to link to some more in-depth reporting on this in the show notes. One of these sites was found in an investigation by the Cowessess First Nation in the Saskatchewan province, according to the leader of the nation, Chief Cadmus Delorme, and it was done using ground-penetrating radar. This discovery not only functions as evidence of this tragic part of Canada's past, but it also brings international attention to something First Nation people have been denied for too long. The last of these schools shut down in 1997, and there are still many people alive today living with the trauma of this residential school system, and they're finally being heard because of this discovery. Archaeologist Larry Zimmerman put it this way in the earlier National Geographic article I mentioned. We've come to a point in American society that we recognize we do science for people. Their concerns sometimes have to come first, even if it's a matter of sacrifice from the scientific community's side. Which leads me to some of the greatest recent discoveries in archaeology. When I started researching this topic, I thought that all the great finds had already been found. But no less than 10 minutes into my search, I realize we're still finding new things all the time and unraveling the mysteries of those findings. Here's one example I'm pretty into. There have been hundreds of mummies found in the Tarim Basin in western China. I know, I say mummies, pretty much everybody thinks Egypt, right? So when these mummies were first discovered in the early 20th century, archaeologists couldn't figure out who these people were. These mummies have puzzled experts for a few other reasons. First, they had a sort of Western appearance to them. They wore felt and wool clothing. They had agriculture that included cattle, sheep, and goats. Second, at this site, the mummies were buried in boat coffins in the middle of a desert. See, this is where archaeology gets really fun when you're looking at the archaeological record in China. Where, or rather when, would you place these mummified remains? Some scholars thought that they were the descendants of Bronze Age herders. Others thought maybe early farmers from Central Asia. To solve the mystery, a group of researchers from 5 different universities got together and analyzed the genomes of 13 of the earliest known Tarim Basin mummies, dating back to about 2100 to 1700 BCE. It was the first genomic study of this kind in the region and includes some of the earliest human remains in the area. What they found didn't line up with any of the theories of who these humans were. It turned out that the people weren't visitors to the region from elsewhere. They actually appeared to be direct descendants of a local group of people known as ancient North Eurasians who disappeared by the end of the last ice age. This means that human settlement in the area goes back 11,000 years, and their gene pool was completely isolated, meaning that even though this group incorporated cultural elements like cattle and clothing from other people, they never mingled with them. As one of the lead researchers put it, this group was remarkably cosmopolitan, which is a compliment I hope people say about me when they dig me up in 11,000 years and look at my teeth and my wardrobe. But this isn't the only timeline-shattering discovery that has been made in the last couple of years, not by a long shot. And some of these headlines lately have been downright badass. Like this massive bone circle found in Russia that contains the skeletons of at least 60 different woolly mammoths, plus the bones of Ice Age reindeer, wolves, foxes, and bears. Like, what was going on here? Were you people living in mammoth bone houses? I have a million follow-up questions. It's so hardcore. I love it. Or how about a discovery in the Andes Mountains of a 9,000-year-old female hunter that suggests that women in the Americas hunted big game just like men? I mean, upsetting the whole me man, me hunt, you woman, you gather trope, even just for one group of people, is huge news. And analysis of other hunter burial sites in Peru is kind of saying you wrong. I think sometimes we have this tendency to think of early humans as uncivilized, uncultured, or just not advanced. But archaeology constantly proves otherwise. Early humans shared a lot, and they got around. What's amazing is just how much genetics and new technologies are letting us get more and more precise with our analysis. And the tech just keeps getting better. In the last episode, I touched on how radioactivity changed the way we date archaeological finds. Now, I want to get into how lasers, photogrammetry, and 3D modeling are completely changing the game today. We're getting more accurate while also being less invasive and destructive with our techniques. So you're definitely not going to want to miss that in the next episode. Until then, I'm Julian Huguet. Thanks so much for watching Seeker Plus. Let me know if you had a favorite archaeological discovery from this episode, or if you have any favorites in general, or if you're in the camp that we should just leave stuff alone. I'd like to hear from you either way. And I'll see you next time on Seeker Plus.